Good evening, everyone. My name is Talia Grimmage. I am one of the senior policy analysts with the Police Advisory Commission. I'd like to welcome everyone to our April Town Hall. So this month is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And a little bit later on, we have some distinguished and honored guests who have been gracious enough to join us this evening, who we will introduce in a bit. But just to kind of start things off, as we usually do, I will go ahead and introduce the staff that is on the line. So as I said, I'm Talia Grimmage. Our executive director, Anthony Arachi, is not with us this evening. We miss him. But I see Danny Guy. Wave your hand, Danny. We have Julian Jordan with us. We have Kimmy Crane with us. Hi, Kim. And Shatina Ray. All right, so usually we start off by doing our executive director's report. So I am going to tap Danny, who will give our ED report in place of Anthony.
Sure. So we only have two sort of important updates. The first is we're really excited to announce that the hearing for the CPOC commissioners happened yesterday on April 18th with City Council. It went smoothly. They are now going to have an upcoming vote this week to finalize everything. And we're really excited. Oops, 1 second, got somebody joining. We're really excited that this is finally one more hurdle closer to the end. That will also help us to finalize our transition into CPOC, which will hopefully be happening relatively soon after that vote. I'm going to put in the chat for everybody the video. You can watch the entire hearing if you are interested. The other update we have is that in terms of our intake of complaints, last month, in the month of March, we referred 10 complaints, and we're at about 36 for the year so far. And those are sort of our only two updates right now from Anthony. So I'll pass it back to you, Talia.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Julian at this time.
Great, Julian, I'm unmuting you.
Thank you, Danny. So as April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we have two really awesome guests here to give some information related to sexual assault awareness that we're really excited to have with us. The first is Lieutenant Cynthia Fry, from the Philadelphia Police Department's SVU, Special Victims Unit. And we also have Diana Jackson from W.O.A.R with us as well. So thank you both for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, thank you, thank you. So usually we started doing something new just to kind of start off before we did our discussion with something a little bit fun. And so I have an icebreaker activity I'd like us all to participate in, especially Diana and Lieutenant Fry. So this icebreaker, we want to know what's one of your favorite things. Can you share with us a new show that maybe you're binge watching, a book that you can't put down, a new recipe that you've been making over and over again? What are some things that are your favorites? And since I asked, I will go first. Recently, I have been watching Better Call Saul. I was a big fan of Breaking Bad. And I wanted to get into it when it first, was released, and I just never did. And one night I just decided, let me see what's going on. And I have been burning the midnight oil ever since. So that is my new favorite thing. Ms. Jackson, can you share something with us?
Absolutely. I will also share TV shows. I feel like with this hybrid schedule and because of COVID, I'm home more, I'm watching more TV. So I feel like I have watched everything. But what I was loving was this show on Amazon Prime, if you are all interested, called From.
And I watched that.
Yes, it's very intriguing. So I would encourage everyone, if you had some time, to watch it. But but yeah, that's what I've been doing. So, and also thank you for having me here. I was muted earlier.
Yes, thank you for sharing that with us. I
No
happen
problem.
to watch From, and I think it is a great show. You know, if you have ever like Lost or anything that is sort of sci-fi and sort of futuristic, it's a really, really good series. I won't spoil it, but yes, I agree with you. Lieutenant Fry, what are a couple of your favorite things?
So my favorite thing has always been traveling. So because of COVID, I've had to cancel some trips, but I recently came back as of Easter Sunday, actually. I got back from Ocean City. So taking a little trip here and there just to get away for 3, 4, 5 days is what I like to do. I'm in my doctorate program. So for me to binge watch anything other than my eyelids is actually impossible. Yeah, and the only reading I'm doing is research journals. So
Okay, understood.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to 2024 when I can get back to enjoying just living.
Yeah, yeah. Well, congratulations on your doctorate program, and
Thank
I
you.
understand. So you're
Yeah.
working on other stuff right now.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of time. Danny and Julian, do you want to share a couple of favorite things with us?
Sure. I'll say my favorite thing now that the weather is nice is that I play on a LGBTQ kickball league, and so it's been really great that that the weather is nice and we can start playing again. The season just started 2 weeks ago, and so it's been fun. It's a great way to meet people and make new friends and socialize, and also just get out of the house and go run around for an hour.
Nice.
I will say I really like riding my bike, and now that it's been getting nice out again, I've been finding new routes through the neighborhood. I can ride about 35 miles before the battery dies on the electric bike. So I usually try to find a different route to take that I can kill the entire battery before I come back home. So that's been fun.
Nice. Okay.
Are we
I think-
saying what we like? Is
I
that
was
what we're
gonna-
doing right now?
I was just about to jump in because I noticed that I have 2 names on here. So I just wanted to explain. I probably should not have done this, but I wanted the staff to also be aware. So I forwarded them my sign-in link. So
Awesome.
Eve Marie, who is also an employee of WAR.
I can
not
go out.
Diana
I have the
Jackson.
link.
No, that's fine. If
I
you
had
want to make
registered.
yourself,
That's
you can,
okay.
Just for the record, I had registered and I can go back out and go on my own link just so we won't have any confusion because I just noticed that too. And my name is Eve Marie.
Don't
And
worry.
so, but I do want to say what I like first in case when I come back, y'all gonna be talking about something else. I
Okay.
like to read, I like to dance, I like to do arts and crafts, I love to travel, and I think I got everything. I love makeup, I love food. I don't wear makeup, but I like lipstick. And I love food, and I love the beach. And I love crystals,
Nice.
butterflies, birds, sunshine, and
All
dancing
wonderful
barefoot in the
things.
grass.
Thank you,
Thank
you,
you.
Ms. Eve Marie. Those are all great, great things. Thank you for sharing with us.
All right, now I'm gonna come back on my own link.
No worries.
Okay. All right, Julian, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Alrighty. So as we mentioned, we have 2 amazing guests with us. We are going to start with Lieutenant Fry from SBU.
Hello and good afternoon. And again, I would like to thank Ms. Grimmage for the invitation. So I have 23 years of experience with the Philadelphia Police Department. I have been in patrol, I've been in gun permits, and 8.5 years of working as an investigator at the Internal Affairs Division. I left the Internal Affairs Division August of 2021, and I started here at the Special Victims Unit. So what I would like to say is that I'm also a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and Sexual Violence Awareness Month being April, my sorority is very involved in community And so we are out there getting the word out as well. So this was just another opportunity. I did not share the link with them because they would have taken over, and I didn't want that to happen. But maybe next time we can do this again and we'll share it. But yeah, they have a way of showing up and taking over. So the next slide. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm sorry, I just came back from court. I had to get some water. And that's why I was late. And please, I apologize for that. I had a district attorney's prep at 3:30, and I just walked in the building, turned the computer on. So Special Victims is located, for those who do not know, we're located on the 300 block of East Hunting Park. Next slide. And we are a part of a collaborative. Also here at this particular location is the Department of Human Services, which is DHS, the Philadelphia Children's Alliance, and the Philadelphia, of course, the Philadelphia Police Department Special Victims Unit. The next slide. The Philadelphia Sexual Assault Response Center, SARC, is also here on location. So when a survivor comes here and they tell us that they have been raped or there's been some sexual assault that has occurred to them, that we can collect DNA. The SARC nurse comes right here to this location. In the back, it's set up like a clinic. It's 2 hospital rooms. The nurse is an RN. There's a waiting room area. It's private area. And they're able to go back there comfortably and have their examination done. And DNA is collected on location. And then we hand deliver the DNA package to our forensic science team. Next page, please. I'm sorry, next slide. So the Philadelphia Children's Alliance is actually a really, really great resource that we have available to us for our younger survivors and younger victims. What they do over there at PCA is they are trained social workers. They deal with children. When we have a child under the age of 15 years old, and sometimes children who are older than 15, depending on the child, if they would like a more comfortable setting or they're shy and they don't want to talk about what has happened to them, we send them over to, we'll have an appointment made for them at the Philadelphia Children's Alliance. And they sit in a very comfortable setting with a social worker who is trained to deal with children and see what information that they can get out of the children. It is less of an interview and is more of a conversation. It is videotaped. The parents are nearby, and we usually watch on a closed circuit television during COVID, or we'll watch from right outside the room to hear what is going on. And if we have any questions, we make sure that the social worker has our questions to ask the child, if the child is able to answer any of our questions. But again, they're trained social workers that deal with children, and it is just always easier to have them sit down with the child, have a conversation, and let the child guide the conversation into telling exactly what may have occurred with the child. Next slide. The Department of Human Services, the beauty of having them here on location is, unfortunately, sometimes we get jobs where someone has hurt a child and that person can live right inside of the child's home. The Department of Human Services is able to come into our building and talk to the child, or we'll take the child over there to them. And unfortunately, we have had times where they've had to take custody of the child from the parents to create a better and a safer environment while we conduct our investigations. Next slide. So crimes that the Special Victims Unit investigates. Of course, there's rapes, which include attempt, statutory rape, sexual assault, fondling, indecent exposure, abductions. Those abductions are usually stranger abductions. Sudden death of children under the age of 10. So if a lot of the cases that we get that fit that category are the SIDS deaths that usually come about by co-sleeping. So we do encourage, if you have friends, family that have a newborn, that you remind them, do not co-sleep with your babies. because babies cannot turn their heads. And because babies are not able to turn their head, if the parent is leaning on the child's nose and mouth, and of course the parent is asleep, so they're unaware of it, the child passes away from SIDS. Having pillows, blankets, things that are too fluffy, too comfortable near the child's face can also cause a SIDS death. Attempt to lure. The people that are out there trying to get kids to get into their cars or to come into their homes, we handle those investigations. Child abuse, endangering the welfare of children. Usually those cases are children who are being left home alone, that are too young to be left home alone. Human trafficking, Megan's Law violations, child pornography, and internet crimes against children. The next page, please. Okay, so the investigation process. Our job is to collect as many pieces of the crime as possible. The more pieces we collect, the better chance we have at completing a thorough investigation. The goal is to complete as much of the picture as we can in an effort to affect justice. One of the critiques that we get is, why do we ask so many questions? Because we ask so many questions because we want to paint such a picture that the district attorney can understand exactly what happened. If the district attorney is able to ascertain exactly what happened, if we're able to paint that picture for you, it helps with the court case. So we do ask a lot of questions. We're going to ask questions such as, did the person put something inside of you and where? If it is your vagina, if it is your anus, if it is your mouth, and what that object was. We are going to ask if they had a condom on, because we want to know if we can collect any DNA, being their sperm. Even if they have a condom on, we still can collect DNA because of their skin cells that rub off during the attack. There may be blood samples that we're also able to collect. We're going to ask questions that may seem uncomfortable. However, we have to ask these questions. The defense is going to ask them, and the first time that we get the answer to the question, we do not want to get it when the person is up on the stand and the defense is trying to tear them apart. So if there is something that we can get out of them, and then we can do a further investigation on, and we could bring it to the attention of the district attorney's office, it'll come off much better coming from us than the defense attorneys. The next slide, please. So that takes us to parts of the investigation. The interview process is a part of the investigation. We interview the survivor. If there are any witnesses, sometimes there are witnesses that survivors don't even realize were present. There are people who may be inside their homes that heard the person screaming. That is a witness without them even realizing they were being a witness. Those are witnesses that can corroborate the story. They may be able to help with the timeline, and they may be able to tell us more information about the actual suspect or the doer. The suspect. We do interview the suspect when we can. And the reason we interview the suspect when we can is because, again, we want to put together a completed picture. So we do give the person who is named an opportunity to come in and give their side of the story. And then we put it together, and again, we turn it over to the district attorney's office. In most cases, suspects do not wish to make a statement. They allow their attorneys to speak for them. The DNA, the sexual assault kit, as I stated, is done right here on our premises by a registered nurse who is trained. And fingerprints. If the person who assaulted someone touched a glass, they touch any item inside of the person's home, they touch their bodies, they touch a piece of paper. If there's something that they touch that we can get a fingerprint from, that is always an excellent piece of evidence to collect. Video footage from city cameras. The city of Philadelphia does have surveillance cameras that we have access to, and business cameras. If an event happened inside of a business, we do go to that business and ask them for their video footage, and most businesses do comply. Homeowners, of course, they have Ring cameras and their own surveillance cameras, And a lot of homeowners will help us in our investigation, especially when we tell them why it is that we need the information. And then there's cell phone footage. We recently had a case where bystanders stood around and they pulled out their cell phones, but not to call 911. They pulled out their cell phones and they began to videotape. The videos were placed on social media, and that is how we found out about the job, which was very unfortunate. We were able to collect the footage from social media, and we were able to find our complainant, who was so embarrassed. They did not want to come forward, but when they realized we were going to take this seriously, they came forward, and the person will be prosecuted. Another form of the investigation is text messages. If you're telling us that the person texts you and you think that's not significant, but it is, because with a text message, we are able to review the text messages and we can get a warrant for the person's phone, and we may be able to get additional information off of the phone. Emails, and there are other forms, the et cetera, it's just other forms of the investigation. You're fine, you go to the next page. And the people who work here at the Special Victims Unit, we have agents that are trained by the U.S. Marshals and Homeland Security. The beauty of them is that they come with different training, they come with different resources. They have computer programs that we don't all have access to, but they do. And so for certain cases, we can turn the case over to them, or we can just have them help us on a case. The investigators and the investigators are detectives and police officers. It is led by a captain, and the supervisory staff includes lieutenants, sergeants, and a corporal. Next slide, please. Okay, so these stats are according to phillypolice.com/stats. At the end of 2020, there were 862 rapes reported. At the end of 2021, there were 756 rapes reported, a decline of 12.3%. Most reported rapes are committed by known doers. So what that means is most rapes are committed by people that we know. And although the number has declined, I want you to understand the word that is most important in that language is reported. We do know that there are a lot of rapes that are occurring that are not reported for various reasons. Next page. So when it comes to rapes that are not reported, like I said, there are various reasons that people do not report their crime. That is why getting the word out about sexual assault is so important. The month of April is 1 month, but our job is to make sure that we get the word out to schools, because we get a lot of college teenagers that are reporting what's happening to them in schools to friends, but they're not willing to report it to us. 40% of the reports that we receive are third-party reports. 40%. 40% of all the jobs we get are someone else that comes to us and say, this happened to this person. They were not willing to come forward right now, but this is the details that I know because this is what they told me. And what we do is we contact the person and say, we were told this happened to you. We would like to help you. What can we do? And then they have the choice. They can come in and they can get a rape kit done as a Jane Doe. They can come in and then get a rape kit done and say, listen, I don't want to be interviewed right now. I just want to get the medication. I want to get the plan B. I want to get the other prophylactics that we do give out, the nurse gives out, such as in case the person has an STD. We also give prophylactics in case HIV could play a part in what happened to the person. So we want to get them on a regimen to try to avoid them from catching the disease. So that is why this month is so important. So these are some helpful resources that we give out. Because we deal with a lot of teenagers, unfortunately, what they do is they may take a picture of themselves and send it to a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And I tell people all the time, once you take a picture and send it to anyone, there is a really good chance that that picture is out there for the rest of your life, and they can use it the way they want to use it. Unfortunately, they will put it on, they'll put it on Facebook, they'll put it on Instagram. These kids are out here, they're making sexual videos and they're sharing them with friends, and those friends get mad or they think it's funny, they'll put it on social media. These are some resources to get your pictures and your videos off social media. If they do not want to come forward and speak to the police about it, because I understand it could be an embarrassment, but if you do not want to come forward and talk to the police about it, these are just some helpful resources that you can use to get your pictures and videos taken off of everything from Bumble to TikTok to YouTube. The next slide is for the questions. Does anyone have any questions for me? I hope I didn't go through that too fast.
No, it's great.
So I'll wait to see if anybody in the audience has any questions, but we did receive 3 questions ahead of time.
Perfect.
I guess I'll go ahead. One of them you did answer. You know, it was kind of, if a friend of yours or someone that you know was assaulted and is afraid to come forward, can you come forward? And so you answered that, but kind of spinning off of that a little bit, if there's a minor, for example, that was assaulted and comes forward, but, you know, is kind of afraid to, you know, tell their parent or guardian, how do you manage that situation?
Well, it will depend on their age. And the reason it depends on their age is because if the parent is not involved in the actual sexual assault, we would like to get the parent's consent to speak to the child, because we're going to schedule them with PCA, with the Philadelphia Children's Alliance, and the parent or a guardian will have to bring the child to the Philadelphia Children's Alliance. If the child is maybe 10, 12, and they have a clear understanding of things and they don't want their parents involved, they will tell a school, they will tell someone at school, a teacher or a counselor, and that teacher or counselor will bring them here. And then we will get an emergency PCA to talk to the child without the parent's permission to hear exactly what happened. And if we, at some point, we will have to involve the parents, because court will come out of this, counseling is going to be needed. So the child is going to have to be transported back and forth to court, and absolutely should get some counseling. And PCA does offer a limited amount of counseling, but usually you have to go through your medical insurance to get a longer extended amount of counseling. And so that is why, one of the reasons that we would have to get the parent involved, unless the parent is the doer. If the parent is the doer, DHS gets involved, they become the guardian of the child, and we no longer go through the parent, because we will be looking to arrest the parent.
That makes sense. The second of the 3 questions.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I wanted to echo everything that, I'm sorry, Lieutenant Fry, correct?
Yes.
That Lieutenant Fry just said. And I also wanted to add that because I interpreted the question like maybe the person was apprehensive about coming forward, and depending on that victim's age, depending on whom they speak to, there's a such thing as mandated reporting, where even if they don't feel comfortable and don't necessarily want to move forward, like me in my job, a lot of school counselors and things like that are considered mandated reporters, and they are required by law to report that information. So I just wanted to make that clear, because even it sometimes it's difficult, because the child might not always want to come forward, or might not always, you know, want to prosecute, because like Lieutenant said, it's often maybe someone they know, or could happen in the household. However, we are also bound by law and required to report those to children. But if, depending on your age, if you're adult, you're not required. We're not required to report that. I just wanted to add that little part.
Thank you. The second question, given the Me Too movement, a lot of things have changed about the way that we talk and view sexual assault. And so what advice would you have for someone who was to come forward, even though the incident may have happened quite a few years ago?
I tell them to come forward because we still will prosecute. We will move forward. It is really about what evidence we can collect. However, when it's a case that it is so old that we don't have any physical evidence, then what we do is we'll piece it together based on the events as you're able to describe them. Without telling anyone's personal business. For instance, a young lady said something happened 15 years ago and this man was driving this particular color car and this is where he lived and this is what I know about him. We were able to prove that everything she said that happened 15 years ago was true based on, there was the preponderance of the evidence. So he did have that car. He did live at that location. She would have had to have known him at that time for her to know certain things about him. She was able to give so much information about him from 15 years ago. And then we were able to go back 15 years and look and see what he was doing at that time. We were able to talk to witnesses because we have what's called a prompt witness. If something happens to someone, usually they go immediately to a friend, a family member, they may go to someone they trust and say, this is what happened to me. I do not wish to go forward with the police right now, but this happened. 15 years later, they come and tell us, and we say, did you ever tell anybody? Oh yeah, I told Joe, this person, that person, that person. We'll go to that person and say, do you remember this person ever coming to you and telling you this happened? Oh, they told me this happened. And their stories will match in such a way that you can tell it's not practiced. We take that information, we take it to the district attorney's office, and the district attorney's office will take over and do their best to prosecute. So there is no job, in my opinion, that is too old for persons to come forward. They should always come forward.
Thank you. And then the last question that we received had to do with the popular TV show Law and Order SVU. And so what's from the show, I'm not sure if you watch the show, but if you could talk about maybe something in the show that's accurate, something that's not, but also, maybe one misconception that people actually do have about the real SVU.
So the lieutenant does not go run out on the street and interview everyone. Olivia Benson does. Lieutenant Fry cannot. The lieutenant at the Special Victims Unit, the real Special Victims Unit's job is to make sure every investigation is being handled. So I don't just hop on one investigation and go out and all these crimes that happen, unfortunately, do not get solved in 60 minutes. But I do credit Special Victims Unit, because the TV show, because they actually do a really good job at portraying the way victims are victimized. Mm-hmm. And one of the ones that they had, a series that they had, was about human trafficking of children. And people were calling like, does that really happen? It really happens. And so I tell people, be careful about who has your child. Be careful about who you give your child's information to, what school your child goes to. People are on social media and this is my kid's teacher, and this is my kid's school, and this is my kid's name. And they're giving out so much information that these attempt to lure is because this person is a social media friend of a parent who shows up at their child's school and has enough information that they're able to ask for the child by name and identify the child when they see the child. It's just very fortunate that the schools are smarter. Thank God the schools are smarter than these people who are attempting to lure the child, because they need more than you knowing the child's name, and they need more than you knowing that the child attends the school. They need the parents' consent to give you the child. We've had predators who have walked up to schools and asked for a child by name through a gate while they see the child at recess, and the child will go over, and a teacher actually intervened and called the police, and we were able to get that person off the street. And by a search warrant, we were able to find pictures that this person had been taken at various schools. So I tell people that that the human trafficking is very true. And there are predators out here who do prefer children. So it could be an uncle, it could be a grandfather. When kids become a certain age, old school is your kid become a certain age, especially your daughters, you don't sit on your uncles and your daddies and your cousins' laps. That is still very true because, like I said in the beginning, most of these crimes are happening by people that we know. They're people that we know, they're people that we trust, especially when it comes to children. They get the children to play games with them. They get these children to trust and believe in them. And then they commit these crimes against the children and they convince the child not to tell. So the Special Victims Unit TV show is very dead on right when it comes to their portrayal of human trafficking and crimes that occur to many children. One of the parts where they don't do the best is when it comes to stranger rapes. Stranger rapes are actually rare. They're actually a rarity. Rape is more of a crime of opportunity. It's an acquaintance, it's someone you know. It does happen when it is a stranger, but it is usually rare.
I didn't know that. That's good to know. That's very interesting.
Do you know statistics of like what the breakdown is?
So I do not have any official statistics to share today. The police department didn't give them to me to share, unfortunately, except the ones that I gave you. Yeah, sorry.
I was just curious.
Yeah, and I do understand that, but yeah, I don't have any statistics that to share today. Sorry.
Lieutenant Frye, I have a question. Something you
Yes.
mentioned a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
and I think it is commonly referred to as sort of like revenge porn. When someone, can you talk a little bit about that a little bit more? Just because I don't think young people understand, the consequences of doing something like that. So
Yes.
if someone shares a video, this is your girlfriend, boyfriend, they share the video with you, and then you break up and you decide you want to post it to embarrass them. What are some of the consequences that happen if you're the person that's sharing it without their consent?
If we can tell that you have shared it without their consent, you will be arrested. Unfortunately, there are sites like Pornhub and there's a couple of other ones that are based in places like Germany.
Okay.
And we reach out with an affidavit to Germany and say, can we have the person who gave you this video? And they basically say, haha, good luck. No.
Mm.
And so when it's Facebook, when it's Instagram, those are the ones that we can easily get a warrant and they will give us the person who put it up and we're able to prosecute that person because revenge porn is a crime.
Mm.
It is a crime and it is prosecutional. It is prosecution, you know the word.
Yes.
It is prosecutory. However, when it's certain sites, it's harder to prosecute because they don't use their real name. And again, when you reach out to some of these places, you have to speak to someone who's in Germany or Russia and other places, and they don't feel inclined to help. So that's just, so my advice is do not do porn when you love him or her, ever.
Got it.
And I have also one more question before
Yes.
Talia introduces our next guest. I saw on the slide that, SVU handles some of the, like internet crimes.
Yeah.
When it comes to people who are like child predators online, I've been seeing more and with more frequency, just like everyday citizens kind of baiting people online. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? If you work with people like that to actually prosecute people, if you discourage people from doing that.
If I discourage people from,
So like people, for example, like if I, for example, not me, but just as an example, I were to go online and pose as a 12-year-old boy and find someone who, is trying to meet up with me for sexual purposes or trying to get, explicit photographs or something from me.
Right.
Do you, is that frowned upon for regular citizens to do that? Is it possible for those people to, get the person involved on the other side arrested,
Right.
bring any charges against them?
So we do frown upon you taking it into your own hands to try to catch these perpetrators. The reason is because we do not know the extent of what they're willing to do to you. So they are really, really smart, most of them. So they can look up your IP address and see where you're at, some of them. And if they find out where you at, they'll come and they'll sit by your house and they'll watch. And if they determine that you are the person trying to catch them, and you don't actually have a 12-year-old that's in there, they could harm you. So we do discourage that. So what we do here is we have people who are trained in it. So they're blocking their IP addresses. So the person who's the predator cannot find our investigators who are attempting to get as much information from them as possible. And also, one of the problems with a citizen attempting to do this is you could be baited into having child porn sent to you. Once you open it, you now have in your possession child porn, and you can be prosecuted for having that child porn. Wow. So that is why we strongly advise that citizens do not try to catch these predators on your own. If you think you know someone who is a predator, don't let them know what you think. Call 911, report it to the police. The police officers will bring it here and we will do our job. We are backed by Homeland Security with their computer systems. We are backed by the FBI. We are backed by the marshals. Citizens who are trying to effect these arrests on their own, you're not backed. So you can also be prosecuted. So if you know something, you say something. You call 911 and let us do our job and give us as much information as you can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Talia?
Okay. And Julian, thank you so much for that last question, because we talked about Law and Order, but I know To Catch a Predator with Chris Hansen, that's a popular one too, and people sit at home and they think, oh, all I have to do is disguise my voice and send a message. And it's like, you have no idea who this person is that's willing to drive 400 miles to meet with a child, so if you're not a professional, please don't try to, make an arrest on your own. That's really great information. And at this time, we are going to move on to our second presentation. We have Miss Diana Jackson with us from W.O.A.R. Miss Jackson, please, welcome.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Diana, I'm gonna let you share. Just give me a second.
Oh.
So I can see the permissions.
Okay. Based on some of the questions that were coming up and some of the things that everyone asked regarding some of the information that Lieutenant Fry presented, I had pulled over some additional slides in my PowerPoint that we pull directly from information about like some of the laws around sexting, and just so that you can get a visual.
You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Sorry for the little change, but alrighty.
Thanks everyone for bearing with us as we.
Yes, thank you. Oh, do I have to like be a host now? I
You didn't have to. I changed it so that you
okay.
should be able to just say.
It's not letting me do presenter view.
Yep, there we go.
So, okay, it doesn't look like it's gonna allow me to do like presenter view here.
Did you open the PowerPoint up in presenter view already?
Yeah.
If you close out, if you stop sharing your screen and then go into presentation view and then go back to Zoom and then click the show screen, it should allow you to show the presenter view.
Okay, it's just not gonna let me see my notes here.
Oh.
All right. Okay. That's okay. Thank you everyone for being patient. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. This is why it makes sense for you to share. There normally is an option here. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it. You might see some of my notes in case I forget something.
No
Don't
worries.
judge me. All righty. All right. So, here we go. My name is Diana Jackson, and I am the project coordinator at W.O.A.R. For those who are not familiar, W.O.A.R, our name is W.O.A.R Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence. And our mission is to eliminate all forms, I'm gonna pull these up and read, so I'm sorry. All forms of sexual violence through specialized treatment services, comprehensive education programs, and W.O.A.R recognizes that sexual violence is rooted in systemic oppression. And therefore, in addition to fighting sexual violence, we try to fight all forms of violence, including racism and gender-based violence. W.O.A.R is the only rape crisis center in the city of Philadelphia. And it started with a few women in the room and has grown to a large organization that provides services to one of the largest or the largest county in Pennsylvania. So W.O.A.R has a plethora of services that we provide to the community that includes individual as well as group counseling. We have a 24-hour hotline where referrals can be made and individuals can call at any time and speak to someone. We have medical and legal advocates as well as an outreach and education department. And I'm going to talk about a few of those in a little bit more detail. So within our direct services department, I'm first going to talk about our counseling. We have individual as well as group counseling where any individual who has been a victim of sexual violence can come and receive services from W.O.A.R. We have open drop-in groups. We have a core group that meets as well as a legal support group that meets. Some of the advantages to counseling at W.O.A.R are all of our services are free of charge. So there is no insurance needed, and no out-of-pocket costs to any individual or their families if they need these services. In addition to that, to come to W.O.A.R, it does not matter if your sexual assault or sexual violence situation has happened 4 days ago or 40 years ago. W.O.A.R really focuses on healing through trauma. So all of our license are trauma informed. And they really help individuals cope and try to get back to their everyday living regardless of when their sexual assault happened. We also offer medical and court accompaniment. And we also, through PSARC, which Lieutenant Fry mentioned, PSARC, we have a direct relationship with them, and the SVU have been gracious enough to provide space for W.O.A.R within Special Victim Unit that houses a advocate that is available if individuals would like to request an advocate be present for them when they receive their medical treatment at PSARC. Another interesting thing about PSARC is that, so there is a committee that is comprised of W.O.A.R, Women's Law Project, SVU, the DA's office, and it's called PSAC, which is the Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence, and PSARC, all the acronyms. PSARC, which is the Philadelphia, why can't I get this right? Lieutenant Fry, do you remember? I cannot think right now, and I apologize.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was muted, but PSARC is the Philadelphia Sexual Assault Response Center.
There we go. Thank you. And it was just not coming to me. So thank you for tapping in there. But PSARC came out of that group of individuals meeting and discussing like the needs of the communities and the needs of Philadelphia. And from that group, PSARC was birthed. And so now we have that, and it's a stationary place where individuals go. And like Lieutenant said, there are all these other departments in there, and it's kind of like a one-stop shop, and it makes it a lot easier in terms of transporting evidence, and also makes it easier for the victims, where is a potential that they only have to go to one spot to get all of these things done. But at W.O.A.R, like we said, we have court accompaniment that are both at family court and the criminal justice center. The picture is one of our court advocates, Nisha Sykes, who has been with W.O.A.R for over 20 years and is well known, and individuals look to Nisha for support throughout the process. Some of the crisis services that we have that also fall under direct services is our 24-hour hotline. We also offer transportation to and from Special Victims Unit. So we're really trying to eliminate travel as a barrier for reasons why people don't report. So because of that, individuals can call W.O.A.R's hotline and let us know what situation they've been in. And then if they need transportation, we will provide transportation from their whatever location they are to Special Victims Unit. And then if they also need transportation home, we will provide that. And like I said previously, there will be an advocate there if they requested to be with them through the entire process. You would also contact our hotline if you needed any information about W.O.A.R services or referrals. And then we also have our walk-ins. Oh, and as a note, I put, so during last fiscal year, during the midst of the pandemic, our hotline calls, we received 1,875 hotline calls. We can't necessarily equate that to what Lieutenant was saying in terms of the number of rapes that were reported. However, because of the varying times that the assault could have happened based on how W.O.A.R accepts clients, but that number compared to previous years was lower than expected. And so some of the reasons why we think at W.O.A.R is because, to echo what the Lieutenant said, that oftentimes when it comes to sexual violence and sexual assault and rape, it can happen within the home and with someone that you know. And because of that, people are less likely to seek resources or ask for help. So we anticipate that as things get back to normal and people are back in schools and back at work, that number will begin to rise. Within W.O.A.R, we also have an education and outreach department. Our education department provides services about sexual violence, and we essentially talk to schools and colleges and universities about sexual violence prevention. We are in K through 12 schools throughout the city, colleges and universities, also any community agencies that request for us to come out, as well as corporate organizations. We have a bunch of varying topics and trainings that we provide. And after this presentation, I can provide a handout that will detail those for you if you were interested in any. We also have a few, special education programs. And these are programs that we are either targeting specific populations or industries to work directly with them and either their staff or their patrons on how to better navigate instances of sexual violence. And some of them that have been really successful in the past one is our Safe Bars program. And that is a program where we go go into bars and we train the staff on how to better navigate, how to train their staff to look for signs of like sexual harassment, signs of human trafficking, like, signs of bullying, those things, how to safely intervene if they are able to. Another one is our Healthy Masculinity Initiative, and it basically looks at, it talks with men and talks about how that they need to work together and become part of the solution. We know that just according to statistics that women experience sexual violence more than men. However, we know that in terms of men, it's certainly underreported for various reasons. And this group works with men to identify those reasons, break down barriers, and find ways to work through any traumas that they have experienced. Just because Eve Marie is on this call, I will talk about Teen Warrior program really quickly, which Eve Marie is the head of. And Teen Warrior is a group that we target for high school students or basically any student. And I'm sorry if I don't get the age right, but I'm going to say 13 to 16. Bringing them into war, and they're kind of advocates. They're learning and also going out in their communities talking about the work that's done at WAR. And Eve Marie always has great programs and outings for them to do, so it's great. So if you have anyone that's interested, let us know. And more recently, we have now begun doing
Can I help
trainings.
you, please,
Sure.
with the Teen Warriors part?
Yep, let's go.
Thank you, everybody. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Diana, for inviting me. I did register all officially. You see my name is regular on the screen now. Teen Warriors is a program targeted to teenagers around the city, ages 14 to 18 years old. We can go down to 13 and up to like 19 or 20 years old. The children come from all over the city. Right now, we have them from the African Family Health Organization. We also have, we're also partnered with W.O.A.R, which is another youth organization in the area. We just recently partnered with Beloved Care. And basically what they do is they come on Fridays from 4 to 6, and we do different kinds of sexual violence education, prevention education, such as consent, boundaries, healthy relationships, conflict resolution. We always start with self-esteem, because one thing that we notice is that you can't give consent if you don't know what your own boundaries are. So we start with themselves. We've been doing great. We just came back from Baltimore. We had 5 Teen Warriors go to Baltimore, and we did, my students taught, they partnered with Freedom Schools to teach other children how to advocate to prevent violence. And so it was beautiful. They well represented WAR, they well represented themselves, and they well represented their families. We look forward to doing great things with other people in the community. And I appreciate Diana because she's the one that taught me how to do a lot of this stuff. So I just got to pick up Diana real quick.
Thank you. Thanks for jumping in. I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to move on to just talk about our community outreach a bit. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I had some statistics for you down here, just in terms of, again, last year during COVID, WAR held a total of 1,045 programs. We did 309 school-based workshops and reached 3,681 students. And that was during COVID. Our community outreach. We go out in the community, as many events as possible. We really want to get the word out there to let people know that these resources are available. So we often do event tabling. We have radio and Facebook Live program. A lot of that is targeted to our Latinx community. We have engagement with the police locally and also through the city. And then we have an initiative with health centers where we try to be present in all health centers and also at any drives, like community drives that they are having. And so last year, in terms of community members reached, it was a total of 4,182, and those are based on sign-ins. So there may be many more people that we have reached that chose not to sign in. So I wanted to just give you some statistics for this current fiscal year. So in terms of community residents, that's already at 2,716. To date, W.O.A.R was able to serve over 10,000 people through our hotline, education, outreach, and direct services. And we had 1,974 new clients. So as I stated before, our previous year's numbers were pretty low. We have already surpassed all of those numbers. And we are not even at the end of this fiscal year yet. So I always tell people, like, the hope is one day at W.O.A.R we won't have jobs, but right now we can see that this is a public health epidemic, and it affects a lot more people than we think. And so we have jobs because sexual assaults are still happening and people need resources. And these are just a little bit more of our broken down statistics for this year. For counseling and therapy, you'll see there's 2,425 we're at. We have a lot more community events. We're now able to go out to schools and programs more, so we're reaching more students. We're able to go out to more schools. I had a bit of statistics down here, and I just wanted to highlight, because I know that as we had discussed before, talking about how underrated it is. And so nationwide, and this is from NSRVC, which is the National Center for Sexual Violence. And their statistics show that 81% of women and 43% of men report experiencing some form of sexual harassment or assault in their lifetime. So we know, based on the reports, that it's grossly underreported. I often like to point this out to just show the different forms of sexual violence that take place and that we also offer resources for at W.O.A.R, because it can be very varying, and oftentimes people experience some of the things here and don't even really understand that these are forms of sexual violence, especially in today's society where so much of these things are normalized. So I wanted to talk just some statistics, and I'm going to pull this up just to make sure I get everything, about some vulnerable populations that experience sexual violence. And we just wanted to talk about male victims and survivors. And we know about 3% of American men, or every 1 in 33, have experienced an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. Males ages 18 through 24 who are in college are approximately 5 times more likely to experience sexual violence than other males of the same who are not students. And that 1 out of every 10 rape victims are male. And we know that men, or statistics show us that male survivors experience some of the same effects as like PTSD, depression, suicide. And we know that they struggle to report those or come forward just based on the societal norms, rejection from families, like isolation from their friends and their community. So we really wanted to stress, that's why our healthy masculinity initiative is so important because there are individuals that look like them, that potentially think like them, that they can relate to and connect with, and hopefully be able to advocate for other sexual survivors based on that. Also wanted to talk about our trans victims and survivors. And so statistics say that almost half, which is 47% of trans individuals have experienced sexual violence at some point in their life. And like it says, we expect them to be higher if they're a person of color or have a disability. So the thing about individuals in LGBTQ communities is that when they experience sexual violence, it can also be combined with other forms of verbal or physical abuse, such as homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. And some of them are targeted specifically because of those identities. And it shows that trans individuals have some of the highest rates of sexual violence. And the reasons why they often don't come forward, or one of the larger reasons, is the danger of being outed. And similarly to what I said about men, if individuals are not ready to speak about it, then there's the fear of isolation from their family, like, feeling like you're turning on a community, and things like that. So we just want to make sure that all of these communities are aware of the resources that we have. I didn't point it out, but we also have a program called a Lotus program, which is specifically for members of LGBTQ community to come together and talk about sexual violence prevention and also healing through trauma together at W.O.A.R. I wanted to point out some information about students who also identify as LGBTQ, and the reasons why is because we know that these students are experience sexual violence at a much higher rate than students who do not identify as LGBTQ. I just know this based on previous presentations that I've done, but it's not in here, that statistically LGBTQ students say that their fear of sexual violence was the second biggest worry. The second biggest worry in their life, because we know that it happens so often. And like I said, it's normally coupled with some other form of bullying or physical violence, just based off of their identities. And this is really highlighted when we go into high schools and talk to students and point this out. And I don't think that individuals are aware of the rate that LGBTQ students experience sexual violence, and the things that fall into the categories of sexual violence that they experience at a greater rate than students who don't identify. I also wanted to tell you some things about children and teenagers in general. We know that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys have been sexually abused by the age of 18. We also know that this often can happen in a place where an individual feels safe, like a home, a neighborhood friend, a school. We mentioned LGBTQ youth are more likely to experience sexual violence than heterosexual youth. And then African American and Hispanic girls are more likely to experience sexual violence than their white counterparts. Just wanna. So I pulled this over based off of some of the questions that Lieutenant Fry was answering in terms of like sexting and revenge porn and things like that. So this is some of the slides and information that we provide to students. We let them know the effects of sexting, and like Lieutenant said, we encourage, do not do it under any circumstances. I like to tell students that, if you like to take pictures of yourself and you like to see yourself with clothes on, that's perfectly fine. However, the minute or the second you send that to someone else, you relinquish all power and all control over that photo, and that other person now has the ability to do with that photo whatever they choose to. So when students are participating in sexting or things like that, we let them know these are some of the consequences that can happen: bullying, revenge porn, risk of being blackmailed, letting them know it never disappears. I'm sure based on TV, what we hear and everything, we know that even when you try to remove those things, once something is out there, someone captures it, they share it, there's a chance it could be there for a lifetime. It can cause increased emotional distress. It can ruin your reputation, isolate you from family members. So it's just not a great thing. And then some of the legal consequences that we were speaking about, and just to reiterate them, if anyone creates sexual images or videos of anyone younger than 18 years old, including if a person creates them themselves, is considered child pornography. If you are in possession of child pornography, if it's saved to your phone, computer, or any other device, and if you distribute child pornography, which is selling or sharing those images, showing it to people, forwarding it, it's also illegal. And some of the legal consequences, you could be forced to register as a sex offender, face criminal charges. And then in the US, if parents are aware that their child is doing this and does nothing about it, they're also subject to civil suits if the victim's parents choose to do so. So great. And then I just wanted to leave you with some resources. So this is W.O.A.R's contact information. I always want to point out our 24-hour hotline. And then information for PSARC, which I could not remember. Thank you for that. The Philadelphia Sexual Assault Response Center, and their address. Some of our legal services teams that we work with, which is Office of Victim Assistance and Women Against Abuse, Women's Law Project, and then our court accompaniment services. So here's my information. And if anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Diana. That was a great presentation. And so we have a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time, but you actually touched on, a few, during your presentation. So I'll just ask one of them. What kind of person would you say would make a really great volunteer for the crisis hotline? If someone was interested in volunteering or having a job like that, what do you look for?
So I personally, we do have a process. It's an interview process. And I personally do not do that, but I would say someone who's compassionate, someone who's aware of the traumas that are associated with sexual violence, and also someone that's willing to commit in order to be a volunteer at W.O.A.R. And most of our volunteers either work the hotline or something like that. You're required to be trained as a sexual assault counselor training, which is a 40-hour training that you do with online with PCAR, and then you're also required to attend SAC training at W.O.A.R. It happens 3 times a year. So there's an in-person component as well as an online component. And I can definitely share that information with you if you would like. But
please, do you have an intake session coming up soon? You said 3 times a year. Is anything?
Yeah, it's there's a summer session. You do have to register. There is a cost associated with it, unless I believe you are a student. But please let me gather that information and then share that with you, so I'm not giving you any incorrect data as far as dates.
Okay, great, thank you. And so this is something that I am curious about, and hopefully you can answer, and maybe Lieutenant Fry, you may have a perspective as well. But when you see, celebrity trials that are on TV, or when they have these documentaries, I'm thinking of, Surviving R. Kelly, some of the ones with Harvey Weinstein. In your work, do you see an increase in people coming forward when some of these things air? Because I'm thinking, you know, there's strength in numbers. And when people feel like they're not alone or they hear similar allegations, do you find that that gives people sort of a boost to report what's happened to them?
I guess I'll go first. In terms of war, we definitely see an increase in people coming in the office requesting services, or, you know, wanting to work through traumas, or, you know, even like you said, volunteers, seeing how they can help. I can't say that that equates to more reporting, because we know that there's it's just so underreported. But I would hope that it would lead to more reporting, where people understand that, like, you know, this can happen to anyone. It's not, you know, just I don't know. I think it makes it more relatable. It allows to open discussions, so people can have more discussions about it, which ultimately I think does lead to an increase in requests for services and reporting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. So during those times, there was an influx of phone calls. As far as reporting is concerned, there were more questions than reporting. There were people that were calling like, well, this is what happened to my friend, and I want to know if I think it could have happened, what should I do? And so it was a lot of advice that was given during those times. But we have different influxes, and I really can't contribute them to what was going on at the time on television. But I know, for instance, when college goes back, when they return to campus, there's always an influx for at least the first 3 weeks or so. There's an influx when they return to school. That's our biggest influx.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and another question is, how can organizations like the PAC, you know, what can we do to support the work that you do?
I think what you're doing, I'm sorry. I think what you're doing tonight is absolutely one way to do it, because even though here at Special Victims, we work with W.O.A.R, as I'm listening to Diana's presentation, I was like, wow, I didn't know they did all of that. So, and I work here. So, I mean, it is so interesting to me. So just doing this, I mean, getting together and networking and pulling out resources and being able to have the conversation when it's not just what did you do wrong, but what do you actually do? That is a great conversation to have. And I was just actually having the conversation with my captain about sitting down with W.O.A.R and us sitting down and saying, this is what we do. And they said, well, this is what we do. And here we are tonight, and you've done it. And you've done a great job, because there's so many resources that you had that I did not know you had. So it's good to know that you have those resources.
Thank you. And I agree, on a systems level, we say it all the time, especially within PSAC, the advisory committee that we have, that across systems, we know that these other organizations exist, but we don't necessarily know what they do or the resources they have. And then I think on a community level, just the sharing of resources. So at W.O.A.R, like, all of our brochures, we provide them free of charge. So if you have a stationary location, we ask that, like, you know, take these resources, so that, you know, if someone walks in and they see it, maybe they just pick it up and stick it in their purse. So, and that's a way. And I think as we continue to talk about, like, how we are working together to support these individuals who experience sexual violence, I think that's a great thing. We know that oftentimes, like, people or victims might not want to report to the police for whatever reason. And I think that the more we talk about how we're working together, and we really all want the same thing, you know, we want the rapists off the street. We don't want these to happen. The more we talk about how we're working together to make that, I think it kind of helps people to put their guard down and be more open to working with all of us together. So I just think, you know, talking to each other about our resources, and then sharing that information. I think it hits closest to home when you talk to people who are familiar with you. So me walking into your organization isn't always the best thing, but if they're coming to you all the time, talking, they have a relationship with you, and then you share that information, I think people are more likely to use it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed tonight's discussion. Again, I thank you for taking the time out of your evening to sit with us. This is being recorded, so anyone that wasn't here tonight, we're going to share it so that people can still hear the discussion that took place this evening. Go ahead, Diana. What were you going to say?
I'm so sorry. I have to do a shameless plug here because it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Yes, please.
We have many events that are going on for the remainder of the month. The easiest way is to go to W.O.A.R's website and look under events, and there'll be a list of events that are taking place right now. There are a list of events every single day this week with Drexel University Flex program. They're calling it Teal Chronicles, where they are using this entire week to highlight sexual violence and to advocate for survivors and donating the proceeds to W.O.A.R. And just like we do every year, this will be our 5th year of our Hands Around City Hall event, which will happen April the 29th, where we literally meet at City Hall, outside in the courtyard, as long as it doesn't rain, fingers crossed.
Yes.
And we use that time, we honor survivors, and we literally join a link and hold hands and have a moment of silence for victims and survivors in the city. So it's really touching, and that's how we end Sexual Violence Awareness Month. And so we hope that you'll share that information and join us if you can.
Yes, Danny just put the link in the chat to register. We had that on our agenda already to discuss because at the office we talked about it. We are going to participate. We've all decided we're going to wear teal. So we will be here on the 29th for Hands Around City Hall. We're excited about that.
Thank you.
Yes. So at this time, I don't know if we have anyone that wants to make public comment, but we do want to leave a minute or two if anyone wants to share their thoughts on a policing issue or has a comment about this evening. The floor is now open. Going once, going twice. Sold. Okay. We don't have anyone this evening, but maybe next time. I just had on my agenda again, just to remind everyone about the event on the 29th. From 12 to 2, Hands Around City Hall will be participating. And then the PAC, we're going to hold our next virtual town hall on May 17th at 6 p.m. This meeting's topic is going to focus on how critical mental health incidents are handled in Philadelphia, along with resources for families. And this is in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. So please check our social media, look out for our flyer. If you're on our mail list, you'll get more information about it that way as well.
I just put our sign up for our mailing list in the chat as well. So if you're not already on the mailing list, please sign up. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. Lieutenant Fry, invite the Zetas next time. I know they like to show out.
They do.
Yes.
We're doing autism awareness tonight as well. So, but yeah, we'll get them on board.
And Lieutenant Fry, I'll reach out to you so that I can come present to SVU and also to the Deltas. We're there.
Don't bring the Deltas. It's so many of them. Don't bring them.
Not nice.
Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. Hope you all have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a good one. I look forward to hearing from you, Diana.
Perfect. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Have a great night, folks. Thank you.